Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my 2023-2024 Conference Championship Weekend predictions. Well, for the Fanatic, this past week for the 4 games in the divisional round, it was a very pathetic effort in one side and a great bounce-back effort in another. So last week against the spread, for the first time, I think, ever in my regular or postseason run, as I've been doing against the spread picks, I actually somehow magically, or in infamy, I got every game on the spread wrong. Every single one of them. The Texans, after having a 10-10 tie through the first, or having a 10-10 tie, it should have been a 13-10 game, ended up getting outscored 24-0 in the second half. The Ravens get a huge, dominant blowout victory in the divisional round, 34-10. The Packers, who I thought were going to get rolled by the Niners, actually, for about 80 to 85% of that game, in my opinion, outplayed the San Francisco 49ers. Jordan Love had a decent game. He made a lot of good throws to Romeo Doubs. Bo Melton had a wide-open touchdown. Tyler Kraft had the other touchdown. Aaron Jones had a fantastic day, rushing on the ground for over 100 yards on the ground. And the Niners, basically, if it wasn't for Andrews Carlson, Daniel Carlson's younger brother, who was a rookie, who has missed the most PATs and field goals this season, the Packers could have been going to the NFC Championship game, or at least into overtime, if it wasn't for Brock Purdy having the best drive of his professional career, and very much like Joe Montana in nearly his 26th start, I believe, pulling that off. So, that game was a 10-point spread. To go far and back that way, or to be that competitive, it definitely didn't cover the 10. And then the third game, the Tampa Bay and Detroit, that was my closest one. I had Tampa +6, and if it wasn't, even though I still wouldn't have covered, I would have been half a point shy if Todd Bowles didn't decide to go for a 2-point conversion with 4.5 minutes to go. And look, let me shout out Half Moon's picks and the whole state of Michigan and Detroit. The state of Michigan, for their football, both college and professional, have been on one of the best rolls, if ever, in Michigan football history, both professional and college. I've never seen their two main programs, even though I know for some Michigan State fans, they're going to believe that the Spartans are the best program in the state. But I always think of Michigan. I always think of the University of Michigan. What a run for both teams and both franchises, or for both programs. For Jim Harbaugh to get his first national title outright since, I think, the 1950s. And for the Detroit Lions, for the first time since 1991, make the NFC Championship game where they played the Commanders. Also, crazy thing to think about here. Now with the Detroit Lions, that going into the season, 3 longest active streaks for teams in the NFC to not make a conference championship game were the Detroit Lions, the Washington Commanders, and the Dallas Cowboys. With the Lions being taken off that list, it leaves 2 of the model NFC East franchises as the Washington Commanders at 32 years, ironically, against the Detroit Lions, and the Dallas Cowboys at 28 as the 2 franchises with the longest streak of not making a conference championship game. And with how both teams are positioned today, yes, Dallas is in a much better position compared to the Commanders, by far. But with how their coaching structures, of how Dallas is yelling, or you have Dallas family members yelling about Dak Prescott and how much he sucks, how he's not good, how CeeDee Lamb's mom, I can tell you for my bet, next year those streaks will still be intact. You can pretty much bank on that. But kudos to Detroit, though. Jared Goff has played incredibly well in the playoffs. He is 52 of 70 for 74.3% completion percentage, 564 total yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, a quarterback rating near 112. He has been sensational. And in my opinion, and any Lions fans or anybody out there, I believe Jared Goff, for the Lions franchise, not overall, because Matt Stafford still was the best quarterback for a career the Lions ever had. But for the Lions franchise itself, it goes Bobby Lane at number 1. He's still the GOAT Detroit Lion quarterback. Number 2, the second best quarterback in the Lions history, now has to go to Jared Goff with this one run. I think he's making $25 million next season. In the grand scheme with inflation and all the other quarterback numbers, it is incredible what Jared Goff has been able to do, and he has earned the right for a significant pay raise. But I think for Detroit, this is a run that I think, it is sustainable. They do have to think about paying Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is going into the final year of his rookie contract as the 112th pick in the 4th round. But Detroit has a very bright future ahead. And honestly, outside of the 49ers next season, I would take Detroit as the second best team in the second best position, in my opinion. But I got that one wrong because essentially it came down to Todd Bowles screwing up and not even using the timeout. That was something hidden that nobody really talked about that often in the media. How Todd Bowles had a timeout on 3rd down and didn't even use it. And then if, they still should have had an opportunity. If Badgley makes the kick, it doesn't matter. But you still should have made Michael Badgley make the kick instead of, having Jared Goff knee it out and losing the game. So, and then lastly, Chiefs at Bills. Patrick Mahomes, man. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. This is now the 4th time in the past 5 seasons the Kansas City Chiefs have knocked out the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs. It is 3 straight years for the Buffalo Bills that they have lost in the divisional round, twice to Patrick Mahomes and once to Joe Burrow. And I look at what the Buffalo Bills did. They had a pretty much good overall game. Khalil Shakur, has become a very good player. He's probably going to be fighting for that 2 next year with Gabe Davis. Stephon Diggs, though, not a great game. His lowest receiving yardage total of the entire year, 21 yards on 3 receptions, though he had 8 targets. I believe Stephon Diggs will not be on the Buffalo Bills roster going into next season because he already was venting his frustrations about where this team was going after last year, after how pathetic they played in the snow. Now that they had a home game, which was cleared out of the snow thanks to all the proud members of Bills Mafia, that the Buffalo Bills are in the worst spot of stagnation that you can have. Because once again, Josh Allen is a 500 postseason quarterback. Objectively, he's probably the most rawly talented Buffalo Bills quarterback in the franchise's history. Not even Jim had probably all the raw talent of an arm, of legs, of just, going through start after start, tough as nails, gritty, the unique Josh Allen package. There are also some bad intangibles that Jim Kelly doesn't have that Josh does, but it wasn't shown through these playoffs because he did not commit a turnover, or he did not commit a turnover that ended up being an interception or a fumble lost in this postseason. I know he did fumble, but the Buffalo Bills are just stuck in the mud. Again, they're stagnant to where for another 365 days, the Buffalo Bills have to realize nobody is going to care. Nobody is going to give a rip, a you-know-what, about their offseason, even though they're going to care about their offseason because they have the 3rd worst cap situation in the entire league going into next season. But they are in a spot to where nobody will care about how many yards Josh Allen has, how many defensive plays. I think Von Miller will likely be an interesting trade or cap casualty with how ineffective he was. He had 5 tackles this year for their big pass rusher they paid $20 million for, with Von coming off an injury and all those different things, even though he only had 5 tackles. So this contract for Buffalo looks like a huge blunder in terms of they got very little, if any, production over the last year and a half, and I don't think they want to pay $20 million for Von Miller if he's going to produce that little on that contract. But he has the leverage because I think he still has some guaranteed money that's still owed to him by the Bills, so he probably will not get cut after this year. He might get traded, but... And I think for Buffalo, it's just... And wide right. When you look at that game, wide right, again, this is basically... It's PTSD for a lot of fans that were of middle-aged fans in their, mid-late 30s to early 50s that probably remember watching that as a young man or a young child and seeing Scott Norwood miss a 47-yarder that barely went by. Tyler Bass, who, by the way, they cannot cut him because they still owe him like $4 million since he just signed a new extension for a kicker. But Tyler Bass's kick was not even close. It was like 6 feet to the right. It looked like as if I tried to hit a golf shot. I've never hit a golf shot, but that's probably how it would look, the way it came off Tyler Bass's foot. And the Bills Mafia, for the 3rd consecutive year, are in the same exact spot, being the bronze medalist of the AFC. Which, again, it's it's cool to get a bronze medal, but you're not first. You didn't finish first loser. You were just on the medal stand. So, and for Kansas City, what a job. Patrick Mahomes, 215 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. The best game the Chiefs have looked the entire season came down at that moment. Pacheco had a fantastic game, 97 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes breaking the postseason record for most touchdowns by a quarterback skill position duo at 16. I think that broke the Brady Gronk record of 15. And for the Chiefs, this was Andy Reid's second career road win as the Chiefs head coach in the postseason, which is kind of unbelievable to think about, but it's true. He only played 3 road games through his entire tenure with Kansas City, and he lost 2 of them. He lost the 13 wildcard round where they blew that massive lead, and he lost the 15 divisional round against New England. The only road game he had for Sunday was the game against the Texans where they blew them out 30-0, where they beat up Brian Hoyer. So, but that's how, my week went and my thoughts on the initial games. But, now with my against the spread and straight up records, so now against the spread, I am 2-6 against the spread. It is a pathetic, piss poor 25%. And straight up though, I rebounded after starting out 2-4 to get to 5-5. So I am 500 straight up for the postseason. Now definitely overall, I will not be able to get my 50% straight up percentage, which sucks. But now overall for the year though, with 3 games left, I am 135, 140, and 7, which equals 49.1% against the spread. And straight up now, I am 172 and 110, which equals 61% or .6099. I rounded. Sue me if you all get angry that I bumped my percentage up to 61. But let me get into my picks. This will be a much quicker video with only 2 games. But let me tell you who I think will get into Super Bowl 58. My initial predictions still have somewhat to be true. I had Kansas City initially, so that's still alive. But unfortunately, the Eagles knocked out my bubble a couple weeks ago. But basically, since they lost to the Niners, I basically started losing confidence the Eagles were going to make the Super Bowl, and then they went on that 6 to 7 week run that ended up being an all-time collapse that cost both the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinators, both the initial one and the one in Matt Patricia, all to lose their jobs. So, can't blame for that. Who would have expected a 10-1 collapse as epically and as burning fashion as Philadelphia Eagles? So, but here's my Super Bowl 58 prediction for the teams to get there. So, on Sunday afternoon, for the first time since 1970, the city of Baltimore will host the AFC Championship game. First time in Ravens franchise history this has happened. But when the Kansas City Chiefs go to Baltimore to take on the Baltimore Ravens in a battle of a 3 versus 1 number 1 seed, the Baltimore Ravens are 3.5-point favorites in the game. I'm going to take Kansas City here plus 3.5, but I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens straight up to win. And then in the NFC Championship game on Fox at 6 o'clock for the nightcap, when the number 3 seeded Detroit Lions travel to San Francisco to take on the number 1 seeded San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers are 7-point favorites in this game. Give me Detroit here plus 7, but I'm going to take San Francisco straight up. All right, it's time for my quick thoughts on each game. The Baltimore Ravens over the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a game to where for Lamar Jackson, who became the first quarterback of 100 quarterback rating, 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns, 100 rushing yards, 100 passing yards. All-time unique performance by Lamar Jackson in his best career playoff game, by far out of the 4 that he's played. This is his moment to buck up. He is standing facing the king of the mountain. The Ravens have the better rushing attack. The Ravens have the better defense. The Ravens have the better receivers. The Ravens will have a tight end about equal aspect if Mark Andrews does come back. I think Kelsey against Andrews and likely together, I think cancels that out. The Ravens have the better kicker. The Ravens have the experience. John Harbaugh knows what he's doing. And the last time we played them, we beat them on a huge 4th down conversion to win the game 36-35. But this is for Lamar Jackson. the best opportunity, in my opinion, to prove that he can topple the king of the mountain. Because Patrick's coming into this game, Joe Thuney has a pec strain, Mike Edwards left the game, the second play of concussion, Willie Gay left of a neck injury, and they have a lot of other injuries in other spots that are going to make the Chiefs as vulnerable as we've seen. And this is the Ravens team that is not afraid of the Kansas City aura or the mantra of what the Chiefs are. The Ravens defense only allowed 3 points and 38 total rushing yards against the Houston Texans. So I don't think Pacheco is going to run nearly as effectively. And with that offensive line, with how weak it's been at times against very good pass rushers. Remember, just, not even a month ago, remember, this was a team that lost to the Las Vegas Raiders with Aiden O'Connell, a quarterback, who didn't complete a forward pass for 3 quarters against the Raiders pass rush. And, so I believe that Lamar Jackson, understanding the moment, okay, because I think I told everybody last week, I personally wanted to play the Buffalo Bills because I didn't want to have to deal with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. This is the standard that the AFC has been on since 2018, since Patrick Mahomes became the full-time starter. He has the 6th most passing touchdowns in postseason history. He also has the 6th most postseason wins. He's tied for the 6th most postseason wins in NFL history. And, for Patrick's career, he's played the Ravens 4 times. He's only lost once in a 1-point game, 36-35. But he's completed 72% of his passes for 1,479 yards, 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, with a 119 quarterback rating against this Ravens defense, where most of these players have been on this roster through all that time. Most of them. So, I'm taking Kansas City plus 3.5 because I just feel like there's just a part of me going, the Chiefs know what they're doing. They're not afraid of this moment. They are in this moment. All these players know this feeling except the rookies. But most of this team knows what it gets like to get to this game. Andy has done routinely well against Baltimore in this series. But at the end of the day, I take the Ravens. We are healthier. We are stronger. We're more physical. And I believe Lamar Jackson, with the weapons he has, can outplay Patrick Mahomes. And I think our defense can get enough stops and enough pressures to make Patrick Mahomes one-dimensional and get the Ravens to their first Super Bowl since 2012. That's how I think this game is going to be won. If the Chiefs' defense, and I'll put it this way, if we play as pathetically as we did the first half offensively, the Chiefs could win the game, or I would think, depending on what the Chiefs could do with touchdowns, they may win the game if we play as pathetically as we did in the first half. And you could argue Kyrie Fairbairn missing that 49-yard field goal in the wind was kind of a turning point, because technically we should have been down 13-10 entering the half, which would have changed the dynamic of the game a bit going into the second half. A bit. So, I'm going to take the Ravens here. Home field advantage. The momentum and opportunity for Lamar Jackson to showcase to the world that he can be the number 2 quarterback right next to Patrick. He wouldn't surpass him after a win or even a Super Bowl win this year, but he goes to number 2, I think, by most fans, definitive eyes. If you love him, if you hate him, if you respect him, or if you're like me that, respects him as a quarterback, but probably is seen as a bit more of a skeptic, or as more of an objective critiquer of Lamar and, the ultimate Ravens fan that's behind him, that's what this win would do. Because let me tell you something, everybody. If Lamar Jackson loses to Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs team, we have to start looking at Patrick Mahomes as the Michael Jordan of the NFL, or the current Michael Jordan, to where he will not allow anybody else to win a Super Bowl. He is going to make Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and C.J. Stroud or Trevor Lawrence or all those 90s players. The Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, Karl Malone, John Stockton, Gary Payton. You can name other great 90s NBA, Shaq with the Magic, right? Like all those great NBA players through the 90s that were all-time talents, but never won a ring because the Michael Jordan of the league, I think if Mahomes wins, that's what we're running into. We're running into that big of a force that nobody's going to believe, unless Patrick Mahomes goes down or retires, that he will not be in this spot for the foreseeable future for years to come at even a greater clip than Tom Brady was through, these first few years. So I think, and again, to be fair, the other thing I'm a little nervous about, there are only 2 players in on this team that have the experience in this game. I guess 3, but different conference. It's Kyle Van Noy, who was on the Patriots for years and won those multiple titles with the Patriots, and Justin Tucker, who was the only player from the last time he won the Super Bowl, I believe, that is active on this team now. Which is crazy to think about. The Tucker's been kicking out for 11 years, but he's still the best kicker in football. And, one of the better kickers in, league history. And Dalvin Cook, who played in the NFC Championship game in 2017, getting smacked by the Eagles. That's it. Every other player on this team has never, besides, I guess, Odell. Odell would have the Super Bowl experience, even though he tore his ACL. But Odell's played in the championship game, so I guess, very few people on this team that have been with this team for a while know what this feeling is like, know what the expectations are. So, but I think with everything going on, the Ravens, with their toughness, with their better defense, with their healthier roster, and with how they play football inside that stadium, I think they win the game and get to the Super Bowl. But I think the Chiefs will put up a tremendous fight with their defense, their experience, and if Lamar is shaky, I think they'll be able to capitalize on those offensive drives better than what the Texans go to a rookie. So that's why I like Baltimore straight up, but Kansas City plus 3.5. And lastly, the San Francisco 49ers over the Detroit Lions. This is one to where when you look at the San Francisco 49ers, this is the better team. This is an argument of saying that the Detroit Lions, in both their games, were in one-score games. Stafford and Goff played very well. The first one, that was about a push. Goff played a better game than Baker. That was basically, Baker threw for 369 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had Mike Evans had a sensational game in the last game of his probably Bucs career, which is surprising. But I do think Mike Evans could come back to Tampa. But I'm taking the Niners here because they are the better team. They are at home. The last time the Lions went into San Francisco and won a playoff game was back in 1957. So most people have not been alive to have seen the Lions and Niners play this type of game. The Niners have the experience of the last couple of years, and this Lions defense is not very good. And I know Debo, and that's a big injury. Debo Samuel, obviously, if anybody watched the game, hurt his shoulder. He is considered 50-50 to play from what I've heard from the better NFL sources around. And I just think when you look at the Niners, Christian McCaffrey has 23 total touchdowns this year. He scored 36 total touchdowns in 31 games for the 49ers. This Niners roster is just much better. And I think the one key thing I believe as well will be, I think the Niners defensive line will get through to the Detroit offensive line. Because the Lions' weakness is not their offense, it's their defense. Throughout the year, Aaron Glenn, he's had some nice efforts. He had a great effort against the Rams. The Bucs game was a bit of a mixed bag. But the Lions' defense has not been that great. And if the Niners' offensive line can hold up against the Lions' pass rushers, and they have some good ones, including James Houston, who could come back, who's a huge 7th-round pick who became a bit of a star last year before having the significant knee injury this year that's taken him out for most of the season. I think the Lions will have a genuine chance. But I think with the Niners at home, they know the talent with their running game. With Jared, they know how to play Jared Goff. They play Jared Goff all the time with the Rams. And I think the Niners get this win off the running game, the consistent pressure that they'll get with their pass rush, and Brock Purdy makes a few more plays against the Lions defense that I don't think Jared Goff will be able to make because of the lack of time or the constant pressure he will have from the San Francisco Niners defensive front. So, should be a great game, and honestly, I am personally rooting for the Lions. I know some Lions fans shout out Halfmoon's picks. It would be a phenomenal moment. It's a crying moment for Detroit fans all around the country, all around the world. But at the end of the day, when you're playing the Niners, who have been the best team, the Lions have shown cracks throughout the year. The Niners showed some cracks, and this is a typical postseason spot for Shanahan. This would be the 3rd straight time that he loses the conference championship game. If he loses, which will be very reminiscent of the early 2000 Philadelphia Eagles from 2001-2003. They lost 3 straight conference championship games as well. But I guess one difference is Andy lost 2 of them at home. This week, Shanahan's first at home. I think the Niners go hold their home ground and get a gritty, tough win against a Lions team that a lot of people will respect if they put up a fight. And the future in Detroit is bright for the first time in a long time. But give me the better coach, better running game, better overall defense, and just the better efficient with weapons. And that all leans to the San Francisco 49ers. But like I said, Detroit's offensive line, if it holds up, and Laporta and Brown and Gibbs and Montgomery can slice some holes or make some holes like the Packers did, or if Jared Goff can find those open windows, this game could come right down to the wire. And then at that point, I'll take Jake Moody over Badgley any day of the week, twice on Sunday, and a kickoff, if it comes down to that. So that's why I like San Francisco here straight up, and Detroit +7. So that is it. So like, comment, rate, and subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page to go see Bridgewater's Finest, Half Moon's Picks, Andrew Warren, Keith Bailey, the Sports Fan Entertainment, the Good Sports, plenty of other content creators, Fire and Brim Sports, that make predictions like I do every single week for the season. And next week's video will probably come out either Monday or Tuesday, where I will give my Super Bowl 58 prediction and analysis. And then the week after the Super Bowl, I will do my review. And then we will be getting ready for the 2024 season, which is hard to believe that we are getting to that point now. So that is it. So best of luck to everybody. Anybody playing daily fantasy for the conference championship games, best of luck to anybody in playoff brackets. My playoff bracket was dead. Overall from what just happened. But best of luck to everybody. Good luck to all players, coaches, fantasy players, and fellow prognosticators in the final 3 games. And until next week for my Super Bowl 58 prediction, this is Matthew Mack signing off. Until then, everyone, so long.